How does the soul exit from your body at the time of death? There is a hadith, or there are some narrations about that. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned regarding how the soul exits, how the soul leaves the body. تَسِيلُ كَمَا تَسِيلُ الْقَطِرَةِ مِنَ السِّقَاءِ. In one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that the soul of a believer at the time of death exits from his body. It flows out like a liquid flows out of a container. If you have a cup or a bottle and you tip it over, all of the liquid just flows out easily or with difficulty. Easily. You pour the cup and the water flows out with ease. Turn the bottle over, the water flows out with ease. There is no difficulty there, with ease. The Messenger said that's how the believer is. The believer, his soul comes out of his body with ease, as the water flows out of the cup or the vessel with ease. That does not mean, though, that there is no difficulty at the time of death. There is difficulty at the time of death, and it is experienced at the time of death. ولا يمنع هذا أن يشعر المؤمن بسكرات الموت وهذا قبل خروج الروح. That before that soul exits, then there is nothing preventing the fact that you will experience those difficulties of death just prior to the death occurring. And that is mentioned in the Qur'an. وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدٌ. That the stupor of death, it comes with truth in reality, and that is what you were trying to avoid. Everybody trying to avoid that, but that reality and hardship of death, it comes upon a person. وكان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في مرض الوفاة يقول لا إله إلا الله إن للموت لسكرات. And the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, when he was dying, when he was in his final illness, it's mentioned he was saying, لا إله إلا الله. Indeed, death has its difficulties. The sakarat, those hardships and that pain. Indeed, death has that pain and those difficulties. The Messenger was saying at the time of his death, or just before his death, in his final illness. It's mentioned when he was in his final illness, he had a cloth and he was putting it on his head and removing it and putting it on his head moments or prior to his death. So no doubt there is something of difficulty that a person may experience just prior to death. And it's mentioned in another hadith, الْمُؤْمِنُ يَمُوتُ بِعَرَقِ الْجَبِينِ. That a believer dies with sweat upon him, upon his forehead. Meaning, when you get sweat on you, it means that you're doing something that's taking up some effort. And death is not easy, that you die with sweat upon your forehead. Hadith mentions, indicating that you die with some difficulty and you experience that difficulty at the time of death. So even though for the believer the soul will exit with ease and it is taken out with ease like water flows out of a cup, that does not mean that you won't experience, that a believer does not experience some of the difficulty and pain of death. What about the disbelievers? How are their souls removed from their bodies at the time of death? completely different to the believers. It mentions in a hadith, it mentions أما روح الكافر فتخرج بشدة وصعوبة كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. The soul of the disbelievers exits with difficulty, with great hardship, not like the believers where their soul exits like the water flows out. For the disbelievers, فينتزعها كما ينتزع السفود من الصوف المبلول. This example is given in the hadith in the Musnad of Imām Ahmad, that the soul of a disbeliever is ripped out of him, just like a hook or a thorn, thorns on the plants, if they were ripped out of a cotton ball of wool. You know, the wool, if you have a cotton wool, a bowl of wool, but it's wet, pour water on it, a bowl of wool with water, then put that thorn, like from the rose, stick it right in there with the thorns on it, a bowl of wool that's wet. Now try to pull it out. What will happen to that bowl of wool as you pull it out? You're going to make it tear everywhere. It's going to tear and rip everywhere as you bring that thorn that's stuck into the wool. It's stuck in there, so when you're pulling it, it's ripping everything as you pull it out. That's the example given of the soul of a disbeliever being taken from his body. وتزيد هذه الرواية إيضاحا الرواية الأخرى فتفرغ في جسده فينقطع معها العروق والعصب كما يستخرج الصوف المبلول بالصفود ذي الشعب. In this other narration it mentions again about ripping out something from the wool, but it mentions on top of that your veins and arteries are ripped. The veins and arteries are ripped as that soul is ripped out of the body of that disbeliever. That is the difference between how the soul of a believer flows out and the soul of a disbeliever is ripped out. That is the difference between the believers and the disbelievers in the way that the soul is taken out.